I remember my first contract work, it was with a solar panel company, and I was making an advertising game for them. And so, this is a case where they didn't come from an angle of having made games before. They weren't game designers, weren't trying to do the games market. They just wanted to advertise some solar panel games, came up with an overall concept. They let me walk them through how we might do that, how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost, and so on. And by this time in my life, I'd probably put up, I don't know, dozen websites or whatever. I was pretty used to the flow of registering a domain and, pointing it to web pages and whatnot. But right after that advertising game was announced in their newsletter to everyone who had signed up as an interest in their company, and, the game promoted you could earn points towards a discount on a coupon, solar panel installation in California. This is now 10 plus years ago, so it certainly no longer applies. But right after the announcement came out, the server stopped working. Now, it's not like it's a server I run. It's a server that somebody else was hosting. And, he's going through a hosting service like I had for every website I had ever done. But it just suddenly was showing nothing. It wasn't going anywhere. And naturally, I was pretty rattled. Because, this was, they had paid me pretty well for my time to build a solar panel game. And this was my sort of, first attempt into doing contract work completely independently. Didn't have an agency I was working for, didn't have a boss supervising me. It was me and a company and me being paid to do work. No middleman in the process. And this was my kind of chance to get off to a right start. And man, seeing it not come up at all was pretty startling. And you know how servers work. Occasionally there's a hiccup, occasionally it comes right back, occasionally it's some sort of database error from too many hits or traffic. They didn't scale up in time or something. And I just remember momentarily being pretty shaken by this. Pretty concerned that this was the end of my career as a contractor, that I was going to be sued by the people and whatever. And these are nice people. This is just more of me so being, scared of what might happen when I was on the hook for this game I delivered for an announcement that now was kind of maybe making them look bad by proxy. Now, fortunately, the people at the company were all really great, friendly, understanding people. They all knew from the amount that they were paying that they were not getting a giant agency who had experience at this kind of scale in terms of making sure it was going to, run reliably. They knew they weren't paying for even the server hosting in this case because it was going through my shared server hosting on the other sites. And they were all very understanding of it. And they're like, hey, we'll get it sorted out. It'll come back online whenever it does. We'll get it figured out. It's all good. But just the very, very simple phrase that one of them told me that really helped me out as just someone starting out in this space, feeling concerned, feeling, like I said, was this the end of me being a contractor? She just said, don't panic. And I know that that's an expression we kind of probably hear overused. We see, keep calm, carry on kind of old flyers from history and million meme spoofs off of them on t-shirts. But that idea of not panicking is one that I think is one that stayed with me. I make, no secret of Henry David Thoreau being one of my preferred writers, particularly Walden. And he's got a line from it that it's a characteristic of wisdom not to do desperate things. And that is, I think, maybe for me, at the very least, more formalized way of thinking about, okay, how do I stay steps ahead of winding up doing desperate things or feeling panicked, feeling like I'm going to be in a position of being scared? Because we know that's when it leads us to make less good judgments. And so this is the kind of thing that we talk about with whether it's long-term planning, like previous video was about, with architecture, software, whatnot, whether it's business, which of course, talking about this Saturday's conference, September 30th, GameDev Biz, going to keep giving that shout outs. It's the kind of thing where a lot of it, when we're not working on just the daytime schedule, working on really longer arcs, months ahead, year ahead, whatever, a lot of the strategy comes down to, how do I make sure that I stay out of a situation where I'm in a pinch? How do I stay out of a situation where I'm going to be in a situation of having to act out of desperation? And, sometimes it's the little things. I think when people first get into business, sometimes they don't understand that businesses need their own insurance. You get insurance of your business for doing business. Helps reduce the fear and stress that might come from somebody trying to sue the business over something as a separate entity from yourself even. And it also just comes from, constantly mitigating plans, constantly trying to anticipate what are the risk factors, constantly making sure what's our fallback plan. And so we had a little thing that kind of threw us off a little bit for this upcoming event where we made some plans, lined some things up, checked with everybody, everything seemed all right. but it looks like maybe one of our speakers isn't going to be able to make it. And so, me being sure I didn't want to be in a situation where moments before the event, I've got to say, sorry, I know you signed up for a 6-person event. It's a 5-person event. I was already immediately putting out tendrils to figure out, okay, you know, calm, cool, collected, just proceeding. Who can we find to replace this person? We know we can find other candidates. We know we can make this work. And we've got somebody else. We look forward to have more announcement about that coming up very soon. I think you'll be excited who it is. I'm certainly excited to have him as a part of our event. But it really comes down to, again, making sure you have a fallback plan. So even when we did enjoy GameDev last month, we actually had an additional speaker lined up for the event ahead of time so that if one of our speakers wasn't able to make it on short notice, we would still have X number of speakers that we had promised our attendees for the event, to make sure I'm not winding up in a situation where I'm just scrambling last minute. And again, whether it's homework, whether it's work, whether it's personal life, I just find it a useful way of thinking about, okay, how do I manage my time, manage my energy, manage my path as best I can to reduce the likelihood that I'm going to be in a situation of panic, which when you say it obviously sounds so apparent, so obvious, but for me I find it's a useful tool to think of it that way, of it's not enough to just not panic in a situation, although that's obviously a good start because you got to stay clear-headed and make good decisions, but it's even a step ahead of that. How do I even avoid as best as possible the situations that would put me into that mode? And just trying to figure out what are the risks, what are the chances that's going to pull me into that, what are the things that could go wrong. Because as a business gets bigger, these are the kind of things where giant teams will have people who will do all kinds of very large-scale calculation, probability, partnerships, discussions, whatever they have to do to make sure that no matter what happens, even in a series of worst-case scenarios, they're going to come through all right because everything had a fallback plan, everything had some way to make sure stuff got covered, everything had some sort of means of filling in if somebody was not available, whatever it is, avoiding situations for panic. So that's it for the day. Thank you as always for tuning in. Have another video for you all tomorrow. And if you haven't checked out GameDevBiz.com, I encourage you to check it out soon. Hopefully I'll see you there Saturday. Bye for now.